Thank you for joining our session today, Trends in Employee Reward and Recognition Programs. I am Tamika Figaro, the moderator, and I'm joined by Emily Gatton, the Senior Vice President of Professional Services. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
So Emily builds an extensive 16-year background in solution design and implementation to create programs that drive engagement and support our clients' strategic business objectives. Emily is experienced in guiding clients' implementation, informing training, and designing creative recognition solutions, making her a valuable subject matter expert. Today, she leads our solution design, communications, and implementation teams while she consults with clients on maximizing impact and delivering creative solutions. Before we get started with the conversation, I wanted to touch on a few items. We are recording this episode. All attendees are on mute, but if you would like to ask a question, which we encourage, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. All right, Emily, let's get started. Now that the pandemic has started to subside and work has started to return to what we call the new normal, have you seen a change in employee recognition programs?
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting because even though the pandemic is subsiding, the Great Resignation really isn't. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics actually reports that right now there are around 11 million jobs open, and Fidelity's research shows that 47% of employees ages 18 to 35 are still likely to search for a new job this year. So I think the pandemic created this unique period of time in which a large percentage of people started to evaluate their lives, what gives them purpose and meaning, whether the daily grind that they have at work is really fitting those needs that they have at home, and whether they have the support that they need. So many are saying that they need to make a change at work. And based on our Trendicators research, they're leaving the organization to find respect, higher compensation, and better job security. Forbes states that 44% of CEOs cite the Great Resignation as their top concern. So there's no doubt that this environment is leading employers to consider how they can impact these statistics and stop this trend by building employee engagement and loyalty. And we all know, sure, raises are nice. We all like them. We all appreciate them. However, they are pretty expensive. And oftentimes they only impact engagement by a small margin and for a short period of time. Companies are really turning to their rewards and recognition strategy as a longer-term plan to innovate, adapt to this new normal that we have, and find ways to elevate the employee experience at a time when employee expectations are higher than ever.
Yes, and as companies adapt to the work from anywhere environment, and retention is top of mind, we are seeing the need to foster a sense of connection among coworkers, as well to the organization. Do you see there being more emphasis on maximizing recognition and finding creative ways to celebrate achievements outside of emails and e-cards?
Yes. There's no doubt that organizations are applying more effort and specifically more creativity in recognition. I think in many cases, it started as a shift out of necessity. Since employees started working from home, we couldn't count on managers being there in person to present an award or to do it at a team meeting in a conference room, but we had to find ways to create that recognition experience at home. It's easy to send materials to the home instead of the workplace, but I think it's been fun to think about turning that home experience into a true experience. One fun idea that we've had a lot of good reception for and implemented it multiple times is to involve a new sense and include sound. So we have light activated sound units that are similar to what you may have seen in the greeting card industry. But when an employee opens their recognition piece or their presentation item that's sent to their home, they might hear celebration music playing, an instant mood lifter, or maybe it's a pre-recorded message from the CEO. And that small change really changes the emotion associated with the event. It's also likely to draw in children or other family members who may be close by to say, whoa, what's that? And come and share in that special recognition moment. So that's been key, I think, and a fun new addition. For celebrations that are designed to recognize larger teams, companies are still sending the gifts to homes in a lot of cases, but then they're asking employees to maybe share a picture of themselves with that item. I know for us internally, we recently had a March Madness challenge. We ordered t-shirts for everyone involved. And on Fridays, everyone was instructed to wear their shirts. When we got on our huddles, it was fun to see everyone wearing the same shirt. And it created that unity, the cohesion, and the team feel, even though we're all in our respective homes and remote offices. So finding ways to incorporate the family members, if they're the ones that will be there when the employee receives the recognition, or finding ways to unite employees across the geography, really across the world, is definitely something where we're seeing a lot of creativity and a trend in recognition now.
Yeah, and you talked about uniting employees, and there's also this trend of personalization becoming the norm in customer products. Customers are expecting technology to know who they are and what they want and what they need when they're interacting with the brand. Do you think it will become a greater focus in employee experience technology as well?
That's a great question. I think personalization can take on so many forms. Years ago, it really started with something simple. So I want to print employees' names on my communication materials and personalize it to them. Then maybe it's showing an award catalog that's applicable to me and sourced within my home country, or displaying my language when I log into a website. But I think what you're describing and where I do see the industry moving is a much broader sense of personalization. And it's more taking into account who I am, my interest, and my preferences and how I'm recognized. I know, for example, on our recognition site, we've allowed users to dictate information and how it's shared on social feeds, for example, using their privacy settings. But we also ask them to share how they want to receive recognition. So there are personality differences. Some people love their name on lights. They love that public recognition. And others really get embarrassed easily when you do that. And they prefer that one-on-one recognition from their manager. Managers can see the preference in the site and they can adjust the recognition strategy to that employee's preferences, which I think is going to make a bigger impact to the employee if the recognition is received in the way that's meaningful to them. If you think about where that goes and as it continues to expand, we can take a minute to dream, right? And I think there'll be some more advancements in that. Maybe it'll be similar to what you see on retail sites where it will suggest items that I may like based on my viewing history, or maybe it's based on the hobbies that I list in my profile. Maybe we'll even suggest people to recognize, seeing who I interact with on the site. But I think that we can't discount the fact that technology is still only a tool. It can't drive engagement alone with just the technology. So, yes, I do think it's going to continue to go there. I think it will help personalize the experience for employees. But I think that finding the ways to actually have it carry the program forward, generate the excitement, and again, make it meaningful to the employee based on their preferences will still have to stay key in the strategy.
Yeah, I see we have a lot more people who joined the session since we started. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions you would like to ask Emily, please write them in the Q&A function. Emily, as you mentioned earlier, employees are seeking meaning and purpose at work. Would you structure recognition to support that effort?
I would. And, I was a psychology major. I love this topic. Maslow taught us that humans have an innate need to belong and to feel connected. We all have that. And believe it or not, recognition can play a huge role in how connected an employee feels to their team members and ultimately to the organization's mission and goals. So when you recognize an employee for their efforts, you're saying, I see you, I see your efforts, and your efforts matter to me and to this company. So it strengthens the bond that employees have between themselves and the organization. But there are definitely some key elements and ways that the recognition can be structured to ensure that it really delivers that. Our own Roy Saunderson has a great tip on this, and he often speaks to the need for all recognition to have two levels of specificity. So it should clearly state both the action that the employee took and the impact that it had on the organization. And that will create that clear connection between what the employee did and the company and the overall goal and mission to create that sense of purpose for the employee. I mean, Tamika, if I say to you, thank you for thinking outside the box on this cost savings idea, you really discovered a way to improve our efficiency, you worked with the team to make it happen. And these efforts will save the organization hundreds of man hours and thousands of dollars each year. Your team members are happy because we've eliminated unnecessary work and you've made a significant impact in our department operating budget. I really appreciate it. I've now shown an interest in what you're doing and made a clear connection to how that made a difference for our company, and it will give purpose. And it really should, when done correctly, motivate employees to repeat that action. They want that again. Now they see, okay, this is what I need to do. Let me do it again. But there's a lot of research that shows that recognition increases loyalty and performance. But I think that really in order to maximize those results, it does need to be done in a way that creates that great employee experience and creates that connection to the employee in the organization.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at the Q&A and I see that we actually have a question that came in. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on using recognition during the onboarding process?
So onboarding is definitely a trend and a key topic right now. We know from our Trendicators research that employees say that receiving some kind of personalized gift at the time of offer would impact their decision to accept that offer. Part of it, I think, is that it creates that instant connection to the organization like we've talked about before, but it also conveys the sense that the organization cares about the employee and that then the employee will expect that to continue. I think though, when you think about onboarding as a bigger initiative, and it's more than just my first day, but the whole onboarding process, there's a lot that organizations can do even in sharing about the recognition program. So certainly we've seen a lot of organizations start to promote the recognition program that they have as an employee benefit, even during the hiring process, on their website, job postings, et cetera. But then pulling the new hire when they start, incorporating the recognition program as part of their onboarding, explaining to them how to access the site, the different types of programs, maybe even encouraging them to log in by giving them a small amount of points. Things like that can really make a difference, because whether the employee is recognized directly or whether they just see that recognition is a priority in that organization can impact their feeling of the onboarding process and their decision to stay.
I agree. And we all know that employees need to feel appreciated to be satisfied and productive. How are you seeking those rewards and recognition programs shifting as a result of the pandemic and the challenging labor market?
You know, I think that rewards and recognition programs are really receiving more attention than ever. We know even from the stat I shared before that business leaders, even in the C-suite, are stressing the importance of a well-designed strategy, and we're seeing budgets being adjusted accordingly. So the Incentive Research Foundation found that merchandise incentive budgets are up 30% in the US and 42% in Europe. But it's interesting because these budgets aren't simply being added to the existing programs, even though, yes, I will say there is a fair amount of work for those current programs just to make sure that we're accounting for that work-home hybrid arrangement, that we're modernizing the programs to reflect user preferences. But I think a larger percentage of the budget allocation is being applied strategically in new areas. Onboarding programs, like we just talked about, is a really key area, seeing a huge push there. Our research shows that 72% of employees say that that onboarding experience will impact their decision to stay for more than a year. So now we're working with companies to design the onboarding packages I mentioned before, where maybe it's at the time of offer, or it could be day one, or just a couple of weeks after employees are receiving a personalized gift with the company branding on it. It creates the connection that we talked about and gives them something useful that they can use in their job and immediately makes them feel part of the team. We've also seen organizations target larger employee groups through appreciation gifts. Some of these take the shape of an appreciation gift to the entire workforce, just for the commitment and the flexibility that they've shown over the past 2 years. But others are targeting more specific areas. So for example, we have a few clients who are rewarding employees for receiving vaccinations. I think in any case, when you're looking at those additional budget dollars and how to apply them, it goes back to the strategy. How can you make the biggest impact? And some of that is going to be tailored to the specific organization and where they may be seeing a little bit of trouble, or where they need to help motivate and push employees. So a little bit variation, but I would say that onboarding and those key strategic initiatives are the two areas that we're seeing those budget dollars applied the most.
What about tips that you have for organizations to drive higher levels of interest, participation, and involvement of employees in the employee recognition programs?
I think my biggest recommendation is to make it fun. Let's find new ways to surprise employees, whether it's the sound feature in the presentation box, like we talked about before, maybe it's collecting comments from peers in advance, or simply celebrating more often. You can really gain additional interest even from offline employees if you create quarterly challenges and contests and promote them well. We've had clients do everything from a custom e-card contest where they asked employees' kids actually to design a birthday card, and they voted. The card design that won was then sent to every employee on their birthday the following year, and they've repeated that. So it's a great way to create some fun, bring the family into it as well. Others design challenges really to get the employees into the recognition site and to get them familiar with it. So maybe it's suggesting that employees send 5 e-cards in a month. The great thing about that is that employees get more familiar with the program, but it also kind of carries forward, because we know that if we receive recognition, we're more likely to recognize others. I think when you're just starting out, recognition programs may need to be driven by a small group of recognition champions or the management team, but you really want it to catch on and be carried forward by employees at all levels.
Yeah. So I know we have a few questions from the audience, so I'm going to ask them quickly before we're out of time.
Okay.
So first question, do you have any tips for encouraging managers to be recognition advocates once a recognition program goes live?
I do. I think a lot of this depends on the individual company and the organization. For example, when you have a management team that's in a distribution center or in a hub and they're not in front of a computer, you may have to tackle it a little bit differently than an office environment where managers are sitting in front of their computers. But either way, I think that you need to stress to managers the importance of it, help them understand that it's more than just a feel-good thing, that yes, they need to do it, but they need to do it because it's going to impact these numbers. Most managers are tracking against some kind of metrics and business goals that are probably as part of their performance review. And they need to understand that recognition really will help drive those business results. I think finding little ways to incorporate it as part of their routine and their daily process is helpful too. So maybe it's starting every team huddle with a recognition moment. We're encouraging them, if they have a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting, to always make sure that they recognize at least one employee at that meeting, and just incorporating those small changes so that it doesn't seem quite as overwhelming is really helpful. I know we have a 90-day plan even that walks managers through and gives them a check sheet of different ideas and ways they can incorporate recognition. But the biggest thing is finding ways to incorporate it into your daily routine, making it a priority. And then ultimately, sometimes we have to hold managers accountable and we have to watch and make sure that they're doing it. Just because, like I said, once the managers get it kicked off, employees will carry it forward. But that management involvement is really, really key, especially at the outset.
Mm-hmm. And someone else is asking, typically organizations recognize longevity, like 5, 10, 15 years and beyond. Are you seeing shift where organizations are recognizing shorter longevity, like 1 or 3 years?
Yes, we are. And it's interesting because we're not really seeing a change at those 5, 10, 15-year levels. People continue to do that, but I think that they're adding on earlier, whether it's 1 year, 3 year, those are extremely common now because of the Great Resignation and having to make sure that we capture employees' attention early and often. A lot of companies that have points programs may recognize employees really at 30 days or 90 days or some way, again, to just go ahead and start setting that stage to say, we appreciate you staying and your commitment to this organization, and really pulling them into the culture early. But yes.
Okay. And you spoke about employee preferences in receiving recognition. How about in what they can choose for award gifts, knowing there has been a shift in the generations in the workforce? This is from someone in the audience.
Great question. And, I think that a lot of it goes back to the strategy here too. So we always want to maximize the budget, and that can vary in awards. So for example, we have an organization that we're working with now that has an automatic item. It's a very traditional piece that has been part of the culture for a long time. And they're talking about whether they would want to change that and asking employees what they want. And the reaction's a little bit mixed. But if you think about employee preference, a lot of people talk about cash and gift cards, and that's what employees are often going to say that they want. But the interesting thing there is that those gift cards and the cash puts a number to it. So if you're currently spending, let's say, $30 on an automatic gift, that's a piece that employees can't get anywhere else, and maybe that's not providing meaning, and you think about going to a gift card or a cash deposit, that $30 may not seem right for the amount of action that employees took to earn it. So I think that we have to be creative and strategic, changing the approach depending on the type of item or the type of reward. So for things like your ongoing performance programs, we're still seeing that those are going to be a wide range of product that fit every generation, style preference, tons of different hobbies. We really try to run the gamut in those programs to give employees the ultimate flexibility. But when you move into things that are more automatic items or pre-selected items, I think those tend to be a little bit more impactful if it has something tangible instead of the cash and gift card component. And certainly in service awards, We continue to see that remaining heavily merchandise. Some of it is because of the tax implications and how it's tax-free to the employee. But I think there's a lot of research that shows that those tangible merchandise gifts also just produce higher levels of engagement and meaning to the employee. And you can see, like, if you look at research, there shows that there's an engagement tick when the employee is recognized for their service anniversary. And then when they go select that gift, there's another tick in engagement because it's almost like they're reliving that recognition. And if they're getting something where they're using it often, then every time they use that product, they're thinking about that recognition, and it's reinforcing that emotional bond again. So I think that, again, it's a lot of strategy in determining, based on the budget and the reason that you're recognizing, how you can maximize that spend the most.
We have another question. Someone is asking, aside from longevity of service and performance, what are other recommendations for recognizing or rewarding employees?
Gosh, I mean, you can recognize and reward employees really for any activity that you want. I mean, we have companies who recognize for going to a wellness fair, getting their flu shots, and some of those wellness type events. Certainly metric based. So if you're thinking about call center, distribution centers, things like that, those are heavily metric based organizations, sales as well. Incenting them for those types of behaviors are key. Really, I think that you want the recognition to be tied to what is going to drive your business objectives. So thinking about your strategy each year, every organization is going to talk about the top goals and the things that you want to drive in that year. And I think if you can connect the recognition that you're giving to those trends or to the goals that you have as an organization, then you're going to, again, create that connection to the organization's mission. And I'm going to understand how I, as an individual, can contribute to that. But you're also going to drive really the business outcomes that you need the most.
All right, so we have a few questions coming in. There's another questions about points program. Can you elaborate on them?
Sure. Points programs are increasing. They have been for the past probably 5 to 10 years. I think using points programs, again, goes back to how you're using recognition in your organization. So points programs can be effective if the employee is going to do things on an ongoing basis where they could potentially receive recognition. So nomination programs where peers or managers can nominate employees who are connected to the employee values and making a difference there could be an example of that. Where I think points programs are less effective are things that you're going to be recognized and then you're not very likely to be recognized again for quite some time. So let's say, for example, you had a service award program and a service award program only, or the longevity program. If I received points at 5 years, and then I'm probably not going to receive any more points for another 5 years, then points aren't really the most effective, and you'd be better off doing your level-based program. Whereas those ongoing daily activities, daily initiatives, you're more likely to see better results with a performance program where I can earn points over time. I can bank those points and then redeem them for one or multiple items.
All right, thank you, Emily. Thank you for providing all of this information. This is all the time we have for today, but thank you for everyone who's joined and participated and asked questions. Thank you, Emily. I hope to see you again on another discussion. And thank to all of you who joined us today. We'll be sending you a follow-up email with the recording of the conversation. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll send you our email with the follow-up, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks for all the great questions. Very engaged audience. It was great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.